This lecture is an overview of communication strategies for research ethics committees to effectively communicate or provide prompt responses to stakeholders reaching out to the ethics committee, whether asking for information or seeking assistance. In general, research ethics committees are expected to proactively approach concerns in a prompt and appropriate manner. Communicating with stakeholders includes developing well structured procedures, opening platforms for engagement, and leveraging available technology to streamline the process of addressing communications received. In 2023, the World Health Organization developed a tool for benchmarking ethics oversight of health-related research involving humans. This tool is intended to assist WHO member states in evaluating their capacity to provide appropriate ethical oversight of research by identifying strengths and limitations in their laws and in the organizational structures, policies, and practices of bodies responsible for research ethics oversight. It is also intended to guide the development of recommendations to address identified gaps and facilitate the assessment of countries' progress in implementing those recommendations. In addition to capacity building, the tool is intended to promote policy convergence and best practices in research ethics oversight, to enhance public trust in health research, and to ensure that the rights and safety of humans involved in health-related research are adequately protected. The document may be downloaded from the WHO website or from the references compilation that we have provided for this training. The WHO recommends 7 indicators for ethics oversight. These include indicators for legal provisions and regulatory framework, REC structure and composition, REC resources, REC procedures, mechanisms to promote transparency and accountability, mechanisms for RECs to monitor their own performance, and responsible research institutions. For this lecture, we will reference the fifth indicator, which targets mechanisms that promote REC transparency and accountability. Transparency and accountability are crucial for the integrity and ethical operation of RECs in view of their responsibility. Transparency ensures that REC decisions, processes, and procedures are openly available, though controlled, while accountability holds the REC responsible for actions they issue. Transparency and accountability build public trust in the ethical conduct of research. At the same time, clear and accountable review processes provide researchers with confidence in the fairness and objectivity of ethics committee processes. The transparency and accountability indicator has a threefold purpose. The first indicator is to determine whether mechanisms are in place to promote REC transparency and accountability. REC policies, procedures, and decisions should be readily available. It used to be a perception that REC actions are completely confidential. While the access to such information can be controlled by specific procedures, there should be mechanisms to release the information to relevant parties when needed. Mechanism should provide the public with information about the ethics review process, sources of REC funding, composition of RECs, and the research proposals that the REC had approved. RECs are then expected to monitor research projects throughout their duration to ensure continued ethical compliance. And in addition, REC should enable current and prospective research participants and researchers to pose questions to RECs and to obtain a response. RECs are accountable for their decisions and their impact on research participants. It is typically a good practice to include the REC contact information in approved informed consent forms so that participants are informed how to reach the Research Ethics Committee. Including the REC contact information in an informed consent form allows participants to contact the REC for any questions or concerns that they may have about the research, ensuring transparency and facilitating a more informed decision making process and providing a channel for participants to report any ethical concerns or safety issues related to the study that they are participating in. However, to operationalize the WHO transparency indicator, there is a need for a dedicated contact space where different stakeholders can engage with the ethics committee. Establishing a dedicated contact space is crucial for fostering effective communication and engagement, particularly in the research ethics committee setting. In the current context of REC operations, we will need a central administrative setup, and for this, we need several types of communication tools. A very affordable tool is an administrative email that can receive REC communications. It provides a digital record of communication, making it easier to organize and access information compared to more traditional analog methods. It is generally easy to use, even for those not familiar with other technology services, and allows for quick and efficient communication, both one on one and with multiple recipients simultaneously. On the other hand, a website helps establish credibility and accessibility, allowing stakeholders real-time connection to the Research Ethics Committee, as well as a platform to answer questions, resolve issues, and provide frequently asked information. While a physical office, on the other hand, will confirm institutional affiliation or an assurance that the REC is a real entity within the institution. Overall, a well-defined space allows for solid connection with our stakeholders. There are six indicators subsumed under the WHO Transparency and Accountability Indicator that can benchmark its fulfillment, and we can use a simple REC website to illustrate how this can be done. Indicator 1 recommends that updated information on the REC's guidelines and procedures is publicly available. The REC should ensure that information about its processes is publicly available and remains up to date. In this example, I am attempting to illustrate this indicator through our own website, that of the UP Manila Research Ethics Board. Through different tabs, we can see types of information accessible through the website, such as background information, standard operating procedures and forms, submission procedures, schedule of meetings, and respective cutoff dates, and other REC information, including a Contact Us tab. If you click open the tab on Standard Operating Procedures and Forms, we can see further links or access to the SOPs. Another click to the Memorandum, Policies, and Guidelines will identify regulatory documents used by the Ethics Committee. The second indicator is that updated information about the REC sources of funding is publicly available. RECs may be funded from a variety of sources, including national and local governments, research institutions, and research sponsors. Such information may be published in a form of a published annual report or an approved budget, and information about the process used to ensure that public information about the sources of the REC's funding remains up to date. In this example, a link to the fees is provided, although additional information like publication of the approved budget is still in the website pipeline, which hopefully we can complete in forthcoming development phases. The third indicator refers to an updated list of all the REC's members that is publicly available, or at least available upon request. If the list is available only on request, a mechanism should exist to ensure a timely response to such requests. In the case of this example, the list is already available in the form of an administrative order issued by the university confirming the appointment of all these members. The fourth indicator is a list of all the titles, principal investigators, and corresponding dates of approval of all research proposals approved by the REC. If the list is available only upon request, a mechanism should exist to ensure a timely response every time such a request is made. RECs are encouraged to include short summaries of their approved studies in easy to understand language. However, this is not yet mandatory, though it can be helpful to the public. The fifth indicator is for the REC to enable current and prospective research participants to ask questions, raise concerns, or lodge complaints about their rights as research participants and about the ethics review process, and make sure that they respond to questions and complaints promptly. A simple means of doing this is to require the inclusion of the telephone number and or email address of the ethics committee on the informed consent forms, as I have explained in a prior slide. The website currently has a set of frequently asked questions, though admittedly they are not yet participant friendly. For one thing, it is currently in English and a bit technical for general public use. One good functionality to pursue is a multimedia format or use of infographics, which can better engage with participants in general. The Contact Us page offers several options. It indicates, for one thing, our preference to receive queries, especially for submissions and follow ups through our Research Ethics Committee administrative email, and all serious concerns are forwarded to the UP Manila Research Ethics Board coordinator. But since emails follow a slower response time, there is also a click through option that will redirect the user to a Google form where all general queries are compiled. This is the landing page of the Contact Us click-through, which has already compiled nearly 5,000 entries for various queries since 2022. It collects information about the type of query and the stakeholder role of the person submitting the query, for example, the researcher, sponsor, and other categories. It also has optional fields for the person's name, contact email, and institutional affiliation. The sixth indicator refers to the ability of the REC to enable investigators to ask questions, raise concerns, or even lodge complaints about the ethics review process while ensuring prompt reverts, just like with participants. The frequently asked questions or FAQ tab in a website can actually minimize the burden of responding to individual questions that are posted or sent through emails or forwarded through phone calls. Compared to participants, researchers may find it easier to navigate text based FAQs in English. From the previous slides, we can see that FAQs can be quite useful in addressing common queries that you can group together. To create effective FAQs, we can start by identifying common questions, common issues, and then grouping them together by topic. Then write clear, concise answers focusing on what stakeholders would want to know. Organize the page logically for easy navigation, and then include search functionality for quick access. Remember to regularly update the FAQs to ensure that they remain relevant and helpful to those who will read them. We had a problem before. We used to review submissions from non-UP Manila researchers doing research in external sites. That practice was eventually discontinued when we started using an electronic submission system that required UP Manila issued credentials, but we forgot to remove the FAQ section describing the mechanics of external review. It actually took us months to figure out why external PIs and even CROs kept insisting to submit review applications to our REC. And all because we forgot to update our FAQs. In the Philippines, we have an official nationwide 24/7 hotline called the 8888 Citizens Complaint Hotline, used for reporting grievances and complaints regarding red tape and incidents of corruption across all national government agencies as well as local government units. We have had the experience of receiving a complaint filed against us through 8888, primarily due to a turnaround time of approval issue, which we have determined was due to an administrative issue since our operation has not yet been fully digitalized, but well within the 6-week ceiling set by the PNHRS at that time. So what do we do then when we receive feedback, queries, and complaints? Like our 8888 complaint that I told you about earlier. The first thing we must do or need to do is to control our emotional reaction. It is always best to keep things simple and solution oriented. Remember that whether it is a positive or a negative feedback like a complaint, the goal is to keep moving forward and grow rather than find fault or focus on blame. Let us instead invest our effort, our energy in paying attention to details. Collecting information in the face of a problem is an important and critical step, like asking for specific examples about what happened, determining chronology, doing root cause analysis. This will help ascertain exactly what happened, what needs improvement, and how to move forward. If we take time to investigate exactly what went wrong, a solution will most likely emerge. Then respond as quickly as possible to show respect to the complainant for their time, because providing feedback, especially negative ones, is not as easy as we may think. In the case of our 8888 complaint, we responded rationally and objectively within 2 days, citing policies and guidelines that do allow the processing of applications within the contested 6 weeks cited in the complaint. Then finally, offer a reasonable remediation process to correct a fault or our fault, or rectify our deficiency if such is the case, or even just to extend help or assistance. In our case, we apologized sincerely and offered help or assistance any way we can. Sometimes stakeholders take to social media to air their grievances. Social media is now a primary real-time platform that leverages public visibility to bypass the more traditional, often slower pathways to whatever outcome a person may be targeting. But social media is not really secure, as most of you probably know. It can pose privacy risks. You do not even know exactly who you are dealing with. It is vulnerable to misinformation, and it's largely unregulated. And because of the regulatory function of the ethics committee, research ethics committees are not really expected to directly use social media to resolve complaints. If you want to respond, RECs have to use official channels. In conclusion, I would like to reiterate that communication serves to inform as well as meet Research Ethics Committee expectations and obligations to principal investigators and to the public at large. Effective communication and a transparent feedback system are essential for research ethics committee operations to address actual or potential conflicts and prevent or reduce chances of miscommunication. Effective feedback from our clients can be reappropriated to successful delivery of our REC services. This ends my presentation. Thank you very much for listening and for your attention. Should you have any questions or should you wish to discuss this matter further, my email address is posted on the slide.